Sorry guys, this is going to have to be a really simple episode today. I want to have extra time to make sure that the 4-year anniversary video is the best it can be, so this has to be intensely basic, and probably shorter than normal. It's Transformers 1, I don't know, Kitty Tier Optimus Prime? What is this, mainline? And the box is both not helping, just saying Optimus Prime / Orion Pax, and it's also just really boring. All stock art and pictures of the actual toy. Or maybe even a different one? What are you? But first, your likes! Please give, and maybe subscribe. I didn't realize that Hasbro was coming out with like 5 different versions of this guy in the next couple months. So when I found this, I thought this was just a version that we'd seen and talked about before. And now I'm not so sure. I actually think that what this is a massive simplification of the Studio Series version, which still winds up pretty decent. It's really small, but it was only $20, and it's bigger than an Earthrise Cliff Jumper, and it does in parts form. Though it is pretty hard to not knock off these shoulder stacks during transformation, and it's even harder not to take off the arms entirely. This is the biggest flaw with this thing. It takes no effort to pop the shoulders off the body. And as a result, I think it's kind of hard to recommend this figure for a child, who is the target demographic, as it will not be too long before these are lost and these are lost. And they just kind of hamper the fun of the figure in general. Like, I dread the transformation because I just don't want to deal with these shoulders. And that's really unfortunate, because if it weren't for that, this figure is pretty great. It looks really good, there's a lot of color breakup, there's a decent amount of paint, it's really clean from all angles, it holds well except for the shoulders, so posing is pretty fun and mostly frustration-free, and it's got an interesting transformation. This would be a great kid's toy, but they didn't do the shoulders right and it sabotages a lot of this figure. My complaints would be so much less important if it weren't for these damn things. The head sculpt is pretty great. It reminds me a lot of the Bumblebee movie Optimus Prime with the inset molding of the face mask, which, you know, even when he gets this in Transformers 1, they are going to have it retracted like 90% of the time. I would remind Hollywood that people have never cared as much about Optimus as they did when he died in the 80s, causing a legendary uproar we hear about to this very day. And at that point, he had never taken his mask off, so people can emotionally connect to this dude if we can't see his lips. Stop it with this obsession! Anyways, this head is great looking, if kind of a little small for the body, and maybe even a little bit small for your eyes. Boy has a teeny bean, and not even as big as one joint on my pinky finger. I love this head, and I want to love this robot mode, because it would be great except for the shoulders, which are a major flaw dragging the whole thing down. This is so bad it reminds me of early Beast Wars ball joints, when they had not yet figured out the tolerances or the plastics, so everything popped off stupid easily. Luckily here, they at least go back on with, like, no effort, but again, if this is for kids, this is just a part that can go missing that shouldn't be able to, and no matter what, it's frustrating. Then you have the accessory, his laser axe. I like the molding at the bottom that makes it clear this axe is actually projecting out of his palm and his hand is transforming for it. It's also blast effect compatible for some reason. So, I like this thing, but it does have one big problem. It's really hard to get back out of his hand. I almost forgot. This has a matrix that he can actually hold, and it looks appropriately sized for him. So honestly, this has got to be the best matrix accessory they've ever put out. And then the posability is decent. Head is a full swivel and a maximum up. Shoulders can go out to the side like 40 degrees naturally, and then from there they can hot rod shoulder till they're up over a 90, slightly better than 90 elbows, narcissarists. Normally I wouldn't mention a waist swivel, but this being a cheap figure, you might be worried as to whether or not it has one, which it does. Hips are completely unimpeded in all directions, normal 90 knees, and nothing at the feet. So despite the lack of any kind of joint in the ankles, which is weird for a modern figure, but I don't find hurts this thing too much because it doesn't have much issue standing, this is probably above average. The shoulders, as always, are this thing's Achilles heel, requiring hot rodding to get their full range, but it's at least a better example than normal for that type of joint, and he's otherwise just solid in every conceivable way. For the most part, it wants to move how you want to move it, and it wants to hold where you leave it. Then the transformation is both interesting and unique, but unfortunately also pretty clunky. Like getting his grill out of his chest, you need tiny little baby fingers to do it. You just have no space to work with. You can only bend his stomach back after you started moving his backpack forwards, but you can't move the backpack all the way forwards until you've moved the stomach back. So you have to stop one step partway through to do the other, and then go back to complete the other step. Then you have to peg his shoulders and arms in like 3 places at once, none of which want to go where they're supposed to go, constantly trying to undo themselves and pop the arms off entirely, and then the legs don't have any clearance. And the axe can only get tapped in at one specific point. This would be good and interesting and fun if it weren't fighting me at every step of the way, so it winds up a pretty bad pain in the ass. But then you wind up with this alt mode, and while this is a good rendition of it, I don't love it. Like the design in general. It's far from the worst Cybertronian Optimus I've ever seen, but I feel like this thing wants to tip forwards because it's missing the lower grille and front wheels, and the whole thing feels so front heavy. And there's just something about the overall shape that I don't jive with. It's a solid little mode, it holds together great, and it rolls good, but the transformation is annoying even for me, so if you get this for a kid, be prepared to be the person transforming it every time they want it to change modes. And I know I've beaten it to death at this point already, but the shoulders are a problem. This is aiming to be the cheap and accessible version for children, and it's failing that because the QC in the shoulders, that means in 10 years time, more than half of the copies on eBay will be missing their arms. And a transformation that isn't child-friendly. I think it's a decent figure overall. I think that if the kid that you are getting this for is old enough and mature enough, then maybe it will be a decent gift. But at that point, why not just spend the extra $5 on the Studio Series and get something that will probably be way better? If this was $15, I'd see the point, but it's so close to the price of the Studio Series, why settle for the less that this offers? Even if you're broke, unless you physically can't afford it, the Studio Series one will be the better one, because it will at least last your kid longer. And before we go, let's thank a patron. And this time it's Long Haul, with animated deluxe class Blazing Lockdown. I've heard for years what a banger the original Lockdown toy is, and I just want to know what it is about this version that makes it your favorite. Because quite frankly, it's so barely different that I had to look up the original just to confirm what the changes were. Be straight with me. It's just because you're a big old hipster, isn't it? Actually, I'm sure that it's because this was the copy that you owned as a kid. It looks like a good version of the dude. Funny how they inverted the chest. I'd go with the green one myself, but that's just because green is my favorite color. And it's time for the monthly shoutouts. If you'd like a shoutout yourself, follow the instructions on your screens. Sebastian is back, and he wants me to shout out another couple of creators. The first up is Toxitronus' Instagram. He posts Transformers photography. After that is Kenbotbot, who also posts Transformers photography on Instagram. Lastly, Silverstreak, who makes AMVs with Transformers media. It's been a really long time since I checked out an AMV. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, check them out. Troostertube is doing a Q&A for his channel's first birthday. He didn't tell me when that was, but I assume it's soon, so rush on over to get your questions in while you still have time. Domniator makes Lego Transformers that actually transform and look pretty great too. I think he needs to make more videos on how to build them, but give him a look. Bonie Blacksmith is making reviews of figures on YouTube, where he calls it shit-talking toys that he actually likes. And he posts pictures of his collection on Instagram. Cooper Klebba would like you to check out his Tumblr, his analysis blog where he comes up with how he'd like to make his own Transformers show, and bios for characters who don't already have them. And he wants you to take a look at his Horror Flora posts, where he goes into detail about how he'd like to ruin the Transformers as a whole. In a joking way, of course. Decepticon Reviews. Man, I don't know how you managed to secure that name from everyone else who wants it. Is making stop-motion reviews and is switching over his entire channel to stop-motion. Check him out. Megamaster 64's computer just broke, and he'd like to do commission work to be able to afford a new one. If you can commission him, here are his prices and his rules. He would also like you to check out TheApoke, who is a YouTube animator with no big backing, producing his own YouTube cartoon with full voice acting. Give him a look and consider his Kickstarter. Lastly, Lord Vader is trying to hit at least 50 subs by his channel's first birthday on the 14th, where he will be reviewing G2 Prime if he hits that goal. He'll do Commander Skylinks at 100 and the CW Stunticons sometime before 300. He's more than halfway there. Come on guys, we can get him there by the 14th. Actually, true last, I had the notion that I should check my spam folder after this video was made, and I found that there was one message in there. If there were others, they were auto-deleted a long time ago, so sorry about that. But Transformers Bug would like you all to take a look at his primarily Transformers and Lego-focused channel, but that also sometimes focuses on Pokemon and Digimon. And I feel like there were a few people this month who asked me to do shoutouts for their birthdays in my YouTube comments, but none of them sent them to me in the shoutouts email, which is how I keep track of them. So to everyone who had a birthday this month, happy birthday. Sorry I forgot specifically who asked me. I wish you all the best. You make what I do here worth doing, and thank you so much. There's also apparently a fan site for me made by Brotato Skins out there somewhere, but he's not sent me the link to it. I'd love to direct you all there, but I'm having trouble finding it, so Brotato, get back to me, man. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.